This is an image of the Sith at the sun. They had complete control of planet Earth. No mortal man could fight them back. Any who didn't comply were killed. They owned the corporations which ran the sciences and education. And this is how they were able to lie about the true nature of space.
There's no inside structure.
Is it hollow?
Yeah, there's only a surface. There's nothing inside.
Is the sun actually, do you believe, combusting in on
It's
itself?
not burning anything. There's no fusion in the sun. That's well understood.
Proven.
Yeah, well, there's just not the way to prove that there is any. It's only in the flares that you get fusion. That's why all the X-rays. The flares, the arcs, and the X-rays, and the microwaves, and whatever result of fusion in the arcs. There's no fusion in the sun. They don't know how the sun works.
Why do you, what's special, how does the sun make light?
It's a transformer. Transforms from some other dimension. It's not burning anything. It doesn't have to. It's a converter.
Of what?
I don't know. Nobody knows. But that's what it does. That's the only thing it can do, because that's how everything works.
Transforming from another dimension.
Yeah, you could say it's taking energy from another dimension, counter space. There's no energy, actually. You can't, most of it you can't even measure in outer space or see.
You can't see.
No, you can't see the sun in free space.
So the sun is not visible in outer space.
Not in free space. It's only invisible when gross matter becomes involved, like the Earth's atmosphere and envelope and the surface of the moon or whatever. That makes the light. Otherwise, there is no light. You can see the moon, you can see the Earth, but you can't see the sun or you can't see the stars.
But you can see the planets and the satellite.
Right. You can see material objects, but you cannot see the sources of light. There is no light until there's a material object.
To reflect off.
So that means there's no time delay. So the whole time delay thing is meaningless. It doesn't take light years. There are no light years because there's no light. So that means that the light you see from the distant stars isn't 4 million years old. It could be only minutes old. It could be instantaneous. All the theories collapse when you can't see the stars in outer space.
Lilith put a firewall around the black sun in order to hide it from our view. It also hid the Eye of Horus and the Papal Key, which is their gate. The stolen mat is wrapped around Anne's ark. The EM field is not a protection. It is an AI net Ra put around us to hold us captive. It is the origin of the Smith program, the holographic sky. NASA represents it on patches as an electron field surrounding Earth. The Greeks called it the 12 Ethers. This is not a camera lens. The rings are always on the side of the sun. The poles are inside, not outside. And when it's in motion, the planets go right off the screen. These are called the masts of polarity. Their purpose is to divide polarity among the populations. The negative polarity is drawn to the left mast. The positive polarity is drawn to the right mast. They flash in time with the sun's mast. At the time of the division of the families, the left mast is bound and the right mast moves off. That's why they called it the left-hand path of Set. And why they told you there were only two paths, the right-hand path of God and the left-hand path of Set. Another function of the mast is that extended, they act as a guide rail along the tracks, which allows the planet to leave its pole and fly independently. One of the things that Anne's New World Order did was use HARP to break off the masts on Earth in an attempt to sabotage our move. God and the Allied forces worked around this by repairing what could be repaired and bringing in a tow. Earth is shown at the top of our pole, which is called being T'd. We were in T- countdown to leave the pole that held Anne and the Asgartha tunnels. Elizabeth and the Covens and Rothschild have run a company store system on the people with the express purpose of stripping the cash from all the nations. They have been using our labor and our natural resources to build ships to aid the L to fight against the allied forces of mankind who are being led by one himself. He's come for his missing children. The other branches have come for theirs who are in human form. Time works differently here on this side of the gate. It's been approximately 100 years. On his side, it's only been closer to 10. He never forgot about us. After defeating Anne, he sent the entire fleet after us. On February 24th, 2007, all the arcs entered. As one large force, they started plowing the path. On the right side of the image is the mob. They are plowing down the poles as they get in the way. The illusion that this is a stationary object because it's always on the far side of the screen is just that. It's an illusion. This is Saturn confronting him. NASA cut 5 days off here. Every branch has a father, but it is God personally who is the specific father of the branch of man. While the banksters were openly stealing homesteads by the use of covert means, which is punishable by the death penalty, he continued to plow forward. The Covens use a dual name system. AT&T was taught as Anne, Tiamat, and Tamil. The UN is Uranus Neptune. It's owned by Elizabeth and Rothschild. It is a Vatican charter. And while the Vatican and the Rabbinate Council worship God El, he was showing them who God really was. And while the rest of the planet had no idea any of this was going on, Elizabeth, the Vatican, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, they had direct contact with the 7 system lords. And unlike the majority of people, they knew these are called demons because they are the negative polarity. The Wraith, the Archons, and the Ili, which are the El, are in the Coptic record. They were known as brain parasites, the Wraith were symbiotes, and so were the Archons. They require host, they feed on humans, and Elizabeth and the priesthood offered their followers and all of humanity as a food source. And she and the Covens have been implanting humanity, and this is how they've taken over. Everyone that went to a Bilderberg meet became implanted. At the front of the mob are two planet ships conjoined. They are making a plow. All the other ships are following behind it. They are in the thousands. This is Ison. It is a ship. I know it is a ship because I know its very human owner. I tease him when I say, maybe one day I'll visit the planet of Bob. From around the globe, on every continent and every island, even hidden in China and Russia, among the most ordinary and overlooked within our population, are the individuals who stood up at the call of the One. And while he moves so fast, he just leaves contrails. And DoD NASA, who works for the Sith, continues to pull images and lie to the public. The elite at the top are fully aware of who this is. And when the mob arrived, they hit Mars and gave it a coma. They hit the Niflheim moon base. They hit the Illy homeworld Mercury. And then they parked right over Earth. And while the elite fed their underlings some BS story, they personally went into full panic mode. If this is what Venus looks like decloaked, then it is quite possible that three L-shaped objects in straight line formation look like this when they are cloaked. One of the key targets was the firewall and the Sith. This is also the location of the Papal Gate. One of the weapons being used is called a gust bomb. As one launches, the other is retrieved. They've been launching these at the firewall the entire time as they plowed their way forward. Serpentarius has been removed from the information. Much has been altered, including the north, south, east, and west direction. It was taught that the 13th sign only arrived at the end of the cycle. On its back it carries the pit. As I watched, the pit formed on time. It then slowly moved into our area. And while people were saying this large object, thousands of times the size of any planet, was Herculobus or Nibiru, we knew it was the filter, which is called the pit. It arrived on time with Serpentarius. NASA lies when it calls these lines on these graphs the armatures holding up the disk. That is just quite simply not true. Everyone awake was watching the cube ships and the other ships fighting in and around the sun with massive weapons fire that NASA continuously calls lens flares. The East Gate was the main prize. It is the doorway to our domain, and Lilith had broken it. The One repaired it, and it started to open. By October, it appeared that the Greys lost the Earth ship Prometheus, and it became stranded and abandoned at the Eye. As it continued to open while the fight continued, people on Earth started reporting 3 suns. One of the funnier tales, for which I have no images, occurred at this time. The Father of Man, whom you will meet in person, is an old salt. After all, he built this place. I had been openly talking about what I was seeing and what was removed from books, and Ra, who was working openly with the military, set spies on me. And while I was pointing to one area of space, and their spies were reporting this back, the Father of Man took a crew and snuck around behind them, and he caught Ra by surprise at the sun, and he drew the image of a skull on the sun, which completely freaked Ra out. And it still leaves me laughing because it reminds me of this. And in a spectacular move in this Wizard of Oz place, God stole the eye right from underneath them and hid it. And as of January, the eye was no longer seen at the sun. And no one questions why NASA's mysterious lens flares have suddenly cleared up. The pit continued to move to its final position, and by February it was in place in front of the sun. There are a number of planet ships protecting us now, but two in particular are in orbit with us. They are maintaining a defensive stance against the Sith at the sun. The key to spotting them is to watch for the light flashing from their mast. As we watched, the papal key was struck. The top node was blown off. Contrary to what we've been told about space, you could see a visible fire and smoke. It remained burning for quite some time. The two nodes at the bottom are masked. This destroys any hope that the Covens had of escape. As we continued to watch the battle from February until now, the Allies deployed a pincher array at Venus which captured Mercury. Multiple large explosions could be seen. One beam from Venus struck the top of the Earth pole, while a beam from the Sun struck the bottom, and the Allies docked Venus and Mercury's planet ships together. And they remain in this position, huddled in a corner. As we watched the changing images, we saw the mob's image change to the image of a hand. We could see that it had grabbed something, and it appeared to be a head grabbed by the throat. It was not till NASA labeled it that we saw that it was Saturn. And this is when we knew that Saturn had been captured. We then noticed that a gust bomb was poised in front of Jupiter with a mob behind him. Neither were moving. And this is when we knew that all the enemy forces had been captured and held still for our move. Meanwhile on Earth, the one was holding Earth in a gamma burst which has a high vibratory rate. This served multiple purposes. Anything which emits a low frequency or a negative frequency is zeroed out by the higher oscillating wave. The Moloch and the L and the other parasites that have taken human hosts are weakening and dying. HARP, which is being used to target individuals as well as entire populations with ultra-low frequency to increase fear, is also being overwhelmed. Elizabeth Lilith and the Vatican were claiming an esoteric debt on their followers and claiming them for Anne. The one used the subconscious knock to offer his gift among those who were redeemable, but their minds were so locked in fear they unwittingly refused his offer. The gamma burst is to erase their debt and their fear so that they can respond to the subconscious knock. And while the Allied forces kept the enemy busy, the one moved the shop right out from underneath Anne. On March 11th, Earth took flight off her pole, leaving Anne and the Asgartha tunnels behind, and then he dropped a nuke down the inside of the pole. This is what the Earth looks like off her pole. On the 11th, we watched captured Saturn slowly move to exit the mob. Saturn's cube ships had been destroyed, and by the 17th, it appeared as though they were going to dock Saturn and Jupiter. But on Wednesday, March 19th, the Allies destroyed Jupiter. Mars was run to the same corner with Venus, where the same pinchers extended and the same explosions occurred. Mars is now docked with Venus and Mercury. By the 21st, all debt owed to Anne had been wiped out. He has completely lost his share of the division of the families. They will now turn full attention to Earth. The only debt left is owed to mankind, not just because of the slaughter they had done, but because the covens and their priesthood had offered their followers up as a source of food and a source of host, which allowed the invaders to present as men and spiritually enlightened beings, when in fact all of them were the branch of Set, and their purpose was to get oaths and vows so that they could seal people at the time of the division of the families without informing people of what that meant, or that they had been sealed without their conscious, knowledgeable consent to any other branch other than man.